Mentioned earlier, today we are wrapping up HTML, and I would like to share some resources with you guys. First of all, if you notice that when developing websites, we use a lot of images or illustrations on our websites, and for you to say you're going to get real photographs to use, it's quite difficult. However, we usually depend on what we call stock photographs, photographs that have been taken by people which are placed on websites for sale. But then there are a few of these platforms which are actually free. They put the images there for free and they don't even require attribution. They are royalty free. So when you use them, you are not going to be breaking any copyright rules. And so we are going to be looking at them. The very first of them, and I know most of you have come across them already. The very first of them we're going to be looking at is Pexels, right? And you can just visit by going to pexels.com. So when you go to pexels.com, you can search for any photo that you want based on what you want. So you can say, let's say you are designing a website for a business consulting company, right? So you can just say business consultancy, right? You search something in that category, and it's going to list photos that fall in that category. You can scroll through them, and they are high quality images. You can scroll through them, you pick what you want, and then you can choose the sizes, and then you download it. So let me just download this one, and it's 4,000 by 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. Let me download it in its full size. Right, so the image is downloaded, and then I can pick it and use it later. So we'll get back to it. Another platform which you can use is iwaria.com. And iwaria.com, you realize that when you go onto most of these stock websites, when you go to Shutterstock, Pixels, those of you who are graphic designers and or those of you who are already into the web development business and you've been using stock photos, you realize that it's sometimes difficult to find images of black people. We are in Africa, and when you're creating a company for an Africa, when you a website for an African company, you would want to make sure that whatever you're putting on the page is as relatable as possible. And so when you have whites, it doesn't really communicate that message. But Iwaria.com is a stock photo platform made for Africans, specifically for Africans. And so when you get onto Iwaria, you're going to get stock photos for Africans. As you can see, it's only Africans you're seeing. And just like Pexels, you search, you come, you download based on the sizes which you like, and you're good to go. Another one is placeholder.com. When you go to placeholder.com. So, wow, I think I didn't get the website right. Let me just be sure. Better placeholder. I think that's the website. I missed it. Yeah, that's it. So it's betterplaceholder.com. And on this website, you can use any custom size. Are you getting it? So, for example, you're creating a website and you need to get an image which is 600 by 400 pixels in dimension. You don't have to go and get that image, right? To save time and to ensure speed in your working, you can just come on to betterplacer.com, and you can define the size you want. So let's say you want 750, you can just go there, update preview, and it's going to give you an image of that dimension. So what you can do is just what, copy the image URL, and then when you come onto your project folder, so let me open my project folder. That's the folder we've been using all this while, my website. Let me open the Visual Studio Code, and then let me just create a new file and call it 07 Dave image resources, right? Okay, so let me make it resources dot html. Then I'm going to press shift and one, which use what, the exclamation sign, and in VS Code that is going to suggest the basic HTML5 boilerplate. So when I press enter, I have my basic page for HTML. So just come in here to say what, day 5, that is what the title of my web page. You say what, resources or website development resources. Then I'll come here, right? Say I want to add an image, so I bring my image tag and then my source. Instead of linking to an image that is already in my project folder, I'll just copy the link over there. So just go to copy link and I paste it over here. Let me put my alt attribute, let's say placeholder image, right? Let me save. Let me start my live server so that I get to see the changes I am making in real time. Those of you who probably may have not come across this yet, we are using the Beta Live server. I've noticed from the screenshot that most people are not using the Beta Live server, and I recommend you use it while developing. I'll show you an example right now. Before I move on to the next resource, if I forget to show that example, someone should kindly give me a reminder. All right. And so you realize that the placeholder image is showing. Are you getting? So you don't have to wait and go and get an image and wait and go and get an image. You can use placeholders to work. When you get your basic layout, you can now go back and then look for the images to replace them, and it helps you move faster. All right. So before I go, let me just open one of my previous projects which I built, and I'm going to show you something which is wrong, something which is not working right, and that is actually happening. Let me just open the project. So as you can see, I'm in the project folder right now, and I'm going to open the index page, right? So first of all, I'm going to double click on the index folder, the index file, right, to open the web page. So this is the web page. Then I'm scrolling down. Then right on this spot, you can see something is wrong over here. The icon is supposed to be in the center of this container, but it's not working. It's not showing fine. Are you getting it? And so it's good. It's advisable. And then also you realize that there is something showing here which is not supposed to show. This icon is not supposed to show over here. It's advisable that when you are working, you simulate the production environment. We have in software development or in tech, we usually have um, development environment and then a production environment. Development environment is the setting you use to develop the website. So while we are coding, we are creating, that's the development environment. And then when your website is ready and is deployed onto the web, that's what the production environment. And so as much as possible, you try to replicate the deployment or the production environment while you're working. That is why we decided to go in for the live server. So it's going to render the website as it is being rendered on a server. When your website is done, it's going to be put on a server or the hosting, and that's a server. And users are not going to double click on a file and open just like I did. And so now that I've shown you how it's showing over here, let me just get to my project for the document. And then in the index file, let me just go on to the live server. And then I did mention one thing you should notice about the live server is it runs on a port, right? And so if one port is busy, because I was running one instance earlier, which was on port 5500, now it's switched to what, port 62420. And so those of you who might want to connect your mobile phone to your PC, and while you're working real time, you can test it on your phone. Make sure that as soon as you on your local server or your live server, you should look at the port on which your project is being rendered. Then it's going to work out for you. And so let me come back, and you can, from the URL over here, you can realize that this is on running on what, the local host or the IP address 127.0.0.1 with a port number, then the name of the page. And when I scroll down to that same section, you realize that it's the problem is solved. Everything is working all right over here. And so some in an instance like this, when you open the web page directly, you double click to open the web page, you find it and you correct it, right? However, sometimes it can work when you double click, but when it's rendered through a server, it begins to have problems. And so try as much as possible to get a live server while you're working, you go with that. And then you realize that when I'm opening it directly, it's showing this hamburger icon over here, which is not supposed to show until it's on mobile. But it's showing. It's a problem which I have to look through the code and fix. I just want to use this to show you an example of how a change in environment can affect the rendering of your projects. So I think we are through with that, and then let me move on to the very next resource which we will be looking at, and that is I think we looked at Iwaria, we looked at Pexels, we looked at place yeah, is it get placeholder, right? Get placeholder dot net or so. I'll I'll add the links when we are through with the lesson. And then another one which is also very popular is Raw Pixel. And let me see. Yeah, I think Raw Pixel, rawpixel.com. And Raw Pixel is also another stock website. However, they have it's a freemium, we call it. Freemium means they have a free internet premium plan. So there are some items which you can find for free, some items are paid. So you should be careful when you're on such a website. Don't download a paid product and go and put it on your website. It can affect you. In most cases, you're going to get free with it and you are not going to have a problem, but it's illegal. And should anybody raise an issue against you, the particular company you are developing for will run into huge copyright issues, and it affects your reputation as a web developer. It shows that you don't know the environment which you were working in. Are you getting it? It's that's the experience. Sometimes there are times where you get to be in the development space for 10, 15 years and have to experience this problem to know that this is how things are supposed to be, but then now you get to know that this is how it's supposed to be. So when you're building a project for a client, you can use stock image, but go to a website that provides those images for free, right? So Raw Pixel is one of them. Yeah, I think somebody has a hand raised, if I'm not mistaken. Freepick.com, yeah, very good. Fully, thank you very much for that suggestion. We have freepick.com, which I use a lot, most often. They have stock images, they have illustrations, they even have design templates. Are you getting it? So if you're a graphic designer, you can get design templates over there to quickly use. However, you may want to maintain your reputation as a designer, and so you shouldn't be relying too much on templates. It's good to use them for something quick, but when you really want to build a brand and build a reputation, don't be depending too much on templates. Then we are going to be looking at another one, which is storyset.com. Yes, Fully Adade is also suggesting some of them on splash.com. There are a whole lot of them which are very good on Splash. Yes, and then you can also use Pinterest. Pinterest is also a very great place. And so the next one I would like us to look at is storyset.com. And Storyset has very great resources like illustrations, and they are customizable. The page I opened for you guys earlier, yeah, I think I opened this project for you guys earlier, right? Great. So I grabbed this particular illustration from storyset.com. I customized it to fit the color of the brand. Are you getting it? And I'm good to go. I don't have to pay any money for it. There are, however, other resources which are paid. You can go in for that if your client has the capacity to go in for that. So you can come on to storyset.com. Another one which is also great is on draw.com. Is it .co? No, it should be on draw.io. Let me see if I'm getting it right. Let me just search here. Yeah, I think it's on draw.co.co, and it also has some slight customization options. For example, when you come and you go to browse, you can change the color here, and then the illustrations are going to pick that particular color. So if you we can do the customization so that it matches the color theme of your client's brand. So it's also a very good resource. You guys should try and check it out. Then we have Pizza Bay. Pizza Bay is yet another one where you can get free stock images to use for your project. Then, aside all of this, we have another one called Tiny PNG. Yes, Nanajiman is asking if I can help with the links. Yes, I'm going to add the links through the to the project summary, the lesson summary. So I'll do that. We have tinypng.com, and tinypng, unlike the others, doesn't offer what do you call it, stock images. Rather, you may remember when we during last week's lesson that I mentioned about using um, images that are very huge in size and how it affects your page speed, then further affects your website's performance on search engines. So you may want to use images that are relatively smaller in size and yet still they look sharp. You don't want to shrink an image and make it appear blurry on a client's website. It's going to take from the feel and the look, and nobody would want to hire a developer or a designer who puts up a product as such. And so you can see that I downloaded an image, right, from Pexels, the very first website we visited, which is about 1.6 megabyte. Let me look at it in my downloads folder. Yes, and that's 1.6 megabyte. But I want to reduce the size of this particular image, so I can just drag it, drop it over here. What's happening? Something is wrong. Oh, what's happening to your website? I don't know what's happening to the website, but that's how it works. You just drop an image. You drop your image over here, and it's going to optimize the image, right? So as we have this image 1.6 megabyte, it can scale it down to 200 kilobytes, and the quality is going to be intact. We are going to have the quality intact. I'll try and figure out what's happening here, and then let me try it in another browser and see if the problem will still persist. But basically, that's how the tiny PNG works. So after getting your nice images from Pixels or the other platforms, you can now use tiny PNG to reduce the size while maintaining the quality of your image. So for the resources, I think that will be all we will be looking at. I'll try and add more to the project summary. Okay, so yeah, so I think it's a problem with my browser. That's why that was happening. So opening it in Firefox, it now opens. So let's just give that a try, then we can proceed. Alright, so let me just go to my downloads folder. All right, so it's showing us 2 megabyte over here. That's it's rounding it up to the nearest megabyte. Then let's see. Let's wait for it to finish processing. Then we can see the outcome. Great. So this particular instance, it was taking down 20 percent of the size, right? So I'm downloading that again. Then let me get to this. Let me get here. And then from 1.6 megabytes, it's showing at what 1.2, right? And it's not much, but in most cases, it gives you a clear resize. And then let me try with another image and see. Let's see how that happens. Let's see the outcome. Let me now get onto Pexels and get to Warrior. And of course, when you're building a website, you want to try as much as possible to keep images that are shown on a website under 150 kilobytes. They shouldn't go beyond 200 kilobytes. If it's as big, let the highest be 150 kilobytes. But you should also try to maintain quality. All right. So okay, this is 1.4 megabyte. Let's get to Firefox. Let's upload that and see what happens to that. Great. So this is a perfect example. This is a very perfect example. You realize that the oh, I haven't downloaded it. Let me do that. This was the image we downloaded from the Warrior, which is what 1.39 megabytes, and this is what it's scaled down to what 191 kilobyte. That's over 80% save sites that have been taken off. And when we open this, this is the very first one I'm opening now is the scaled down version, right? The optimized version. And this is how it looks. Let me zoom in. You can see how clear it is. Still looks nice. And then now let me open the original one we downloaded, and let me zoom it. And you realize that there is no difference. There is no difference between those two. This is a scaled down version. This is a scaled down version, and this is what the original version. Let me put them side by side and see. There is no difference. So you should use these platforms to scale down your image while maintaining um, the visual quality. So that's Tiny PNG. Now we are going to be moving on from that side for now, from the multimedia aspect. So far, anybody having any questions, anything they think they have in mind, or today's section is going to be a lot more interactive. As I said earlier, we are to round up with HTML. So I'm giving some of these quick tips. That when we begin with CSS and we are building projects, you would know where to grab most of these resources. Yes, Shamil, you can speak, please.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Is there any platform to scale down videos?
To scale down videos, I think they are, but I actually have never used one yet. So I would see there should be platforms, especially with how um, far we are getting with technology and with the introduction of AI technology. Um, there should be. I know of
Right.
platforms to scale down images blurry. Scale down. Are you talking of the video, the size of the video, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the size of the video.
Of course they are. Of course they are. There you can have this Adobe, is it Adobe Encoder or so, which you can use for compressing your videos. There are a lot of video compressing softwares out there. There are a whole lot of them, so you can use of them. You can search and use some of them. And then another one, which it's open source, is Handbrake. The name is quite funny. Handbrake, but it's a very good software, and you can use it to scale a very huge video down to a very little size, and you'll still have a good quality. You almost wouldn't notice a change in the quality, and it's open source. It's free. It's been built by a community of developers, and so um, nobody's charging for it, and so you can try that as well. And it's a standalone app. It's offline, so you download and you install on your Windows PC. Basically,
All right.
that's it. Right, you're welcome. Nana Juman, you have your hand raised. You can speak, please.
Sir, please, I want to find out.
Yeah,
You were saying the images to be uploaded on your website
yeah.
shouldn't exceed like 150 kilobytes.
I'm saying that
So
as
I
much
want
as
to,
possible to maintain your to make sure you have a good what do we call it, a good page load, a fast page load. Then you make sure that you use those little images, you reduce the size of these images. And then there is also another attribute in the image element. Kindly remember me so that I throw lights on that one, which helps to lazy load images. So I think Juman, you're not done with your question, you can continue.
well, I think you have given the answer. I wanted to find out why they shouldn't exceed that size. And you
Okay,
just
so
said in order for the page to load
yeah,
smoothly.
yeah,
And then,
basically that's it. You realize that if you're copying a video which is 1 gigabyte from your hard disk to a pen drive, it takes a longer time. However, if you're copying a picture which is, let's say, a megabyte, it goes faster than the video. So basically, your website resources are saved on the server. When the user accesses them, they are downloaded into the user's browser. That's basically what happens. It's a transfer of files, right? That is why when you look at the website browser, we have the URL starting with what? HTTPS, and it stands for what? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So that it's a transfer of files between the server and then your browser. Are you getting it? And it's running on a secured protocol. That's the reason for the S. This is much more of a networking thing, and I wouldn't want us to jump into that, but I just want you to get an idea of how the website is working. Whatever it is that you coded and put on a server is downloaded into the browser for the user to see. I hope you get it.
yes, sir.
All right, that's great. Um, before I move on, before I take another question, when we were looking at images, we should have looked at that, but it did skip me. Now that we are working on those things now, I would like us to look at it. Right? They say Sankofa and Yebony, and most of there are a whole lot of things which we have skipped. There are a whole lot of things which our attention has not come to it. But as you keep building projects, you are going to be discovering a lot more elements. You're going to be discovering a lot more tricks, a lot more things which you can use to build yourself up. Rome, they say, wasn't built in a day, and so we're going to be discovering them. That is why I want our learning to be project based. We get to build more projects and we keep going. So the image element, as I just mentioned, can take another attribute called what? Loading, and it takes in what? The lazy attribute or the eager attribute. So the eager attribute means as soon as the page loads, the image should load, right? But the lazy attribute says what? Don't load the image yet. Wait until the image is about to enter the viewport. So there are a lot of terms which we are going to be coming across. Wait until the image is about to enter the viewport and then load it. That way, it's going to render your page faster. Are you getting it? So let me try and let me link to this particular image, and then that's great. So let me rename this to lady hyphen small, then lady hyphen big, and that's basically the picture of the lady, which is the optimized version, and then that is the big is the one that is not optimized. So let me make this man. Let me pick the two, and then also I noticed somebody did something. I think he said he has his pictures on the desktop. He linked to them, and what somebody actually did that in the project you submitted. They linked to it, and when they send the file, I can't access it. So when you are working on a website, you create your project folder, right? Make sure that every resource which you are using, if you are not linking to that resource from the web, which is accessible from anywhere, make sure that that resource is in your project folder, right? So I've now come here. Let me just cut these two images. Right click and cut. Go to my desktop. I think my project folder is on my desktop. Open my website, and then I'm going to create a folder over here. So today we are going to learn a new thing called what? Images, right? Images. Then I'm going to paste the images in the folder. And so I'm going there. Let me open my Visual Studio, and then let me add another image. Let me remove the loading attribute from here. All right. Then let me add a paragraph, bring in some dummy stuff. All right. Then let me add a section, bring in an H1 and say what this is a dummy section. All right. Then I can bring in an image, and let me bring this resource over here, and then let me change this to 600, sorry, 600 by 400. Then dummy image, bring what a dummy image over here. Then I can bring another paragraph and bring another dummy text, and resources. Let me see what I've made so far. uh, Quite nice. All right, then let me just repeat all of this again. So I'm holding Shift Alt and my arrow down to make a duplicate, and I think I have a lot of items over here. Great. So now that we are here, let me just duplicate everything, like the section once again. Let me just make another duplicate. I want my page to be as long as possible so that we can see the effect. Okay, so I think this is okay. Then before this section, I'm going to bring in an image attribute, and then what we have done so far, you realize that when we bring in an image element with a source attribute, we just type what the name of the image, the picture dot jpg, as we have it in the project folder, and it works. Right now, the reason it works is because the image is directly in our root folder. The root folder is what the basics folder where everything is. When you open the folder, that's the root folder. Then you enter another folder that becomes what a subfolder. And so you realize that I didn't put the images in my root folder. After opening my website directory, which is my root folder for this particular website, I created another folder which is images. And so if I'm going to link to the image, what I'm going to do is what I'm first of all going to enter that folder. Are you getting it? So first of all, I'm going to what? Images. And the moment you are typing Visual Studio Code, it will give you that suggestion. If yours is not give you the suggestion, then probably it's because of a plugin which I am using. And I think if you go onto the extension and then you search for path intelligence. Yeah, I think so. I think path intelligence. It should do that for you. That is, if yours is already not giving us that suggestion. So I go to images, and then it's going to show me what a list of files that are in that particular folder. So let me bring in image big. Then let me bring the alt attribute as what beautiful lady. All right, and so let me go onto our website, and we have the picture of the lady showing here, right? And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add the loading attributes. I'm going to add the loading attribute and set it to lazy. Great. So I've already loaded this page. Now let me take this out. Now, view. I've already loaded this page and it has probably saved the case. So I'm going to my inspect element. So we are going to be learning a few things with the Chrome developer tools. It works for Mozilla and then Microsoft Edge, but just a few differences. So I'm coming here, I'm coming to my network tab. Let me come here, go to what? Disable cache. Let me just fix this here. So, yeah. All right. So disable cache. Let me refresh my page. Wait, let me be sure. All right. So over here, you can see the list of resources that are loaded on my page, right? You can see the list of resources that are loaded on my page, and it's only one JavaScript file, which is I think it was added by the live server which we are using. All right. So now let me begin scrolling, and keep your eye over here. Let me begin scrolling, and let's see what happens. Wait, it's not happening. Let me just let me try and fix that, and let's see what happens. Network tab, and I got something wrong over here. Let me try and see if I can figure it out. Let me open here resources. Did I add the right? So inspect, and then let's go to the network tab. I'm not getting this right. Great. Okay, so let me go up again. Think I've figured it out now. This is here. All right. So I think let me try and clear the cache. Something is probably wrong over here. Because I have my loading set to lazy. This is actually giving me quite a challenge. I'll take time to figure it out and maybe make another video on it. But usually what happens is that the image which has been given the attribute of let me try and get let me try and get something from the internet and see loading equals lazy. I'm probably not doing something right. So as you guys, I hope you guys can remember, I did mention that when we were looking at the types of websites, I cited this particular website, Stack Overflow. So when you're writing your code and you face challenges, you seek help on platforms like this. And no, do not be ashamed of seeking help, because the software developer, the programmer who has been in the industry for the past 20 years still seeks for help. You don't have everything off mind. So once in a while, you make references. So let me see image is loading. Oh, come on. there is a way of doing it using JavaScript, but that's not what I want us to look at. So the options I'm getting here, great. So when I have this showing like this, and yeah, so this is supposed to work. This is supposed to work, and I don't know why it's not working, but that's how it's supposed to be. When you get into the network tab, let me not waste much time on this. When you get into the network type, sorry, the network tab. Okay, I think I think the issue has been solved. So now the cache has been cleared, right? If you look inside my files over here, I think because the image loaded earlier, the cache was still there. If you look inside the resources directory, the image is not part, right? So let me scroll down to the very bottom. You realize that all the images are loaded, and then the other resources which are helping to run the page are showing. So while I scroll down, you realize that it showed over there at the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see it, but the moment you are getting close to that particular image, it will load. So it helps to reduce um, the page load time. The page loads faster. And then when the user is about to get to that particular section, then it brings up the image. And so that's how it works. And it's very necessary because not every user comes onto your website and they scroll through the whole page. They come, and the moment they get what they want, they just click and then they are gone. So you wouldn't want to keep them waiting while an image at the very bottom of the page will load. Meanwhile, they may not use it. So it's very key to lazy load your images. So that's another thing which it's good to look at. So anybody having any questions so far? So I did mention something earlier. I did mention viewport area, and then viewport area is basically the visible part of the screen. So when you're looking at my page here, from the corner over here to this corner to this corner to this corner, that becomes what my viewport area, and then from here, from left to right, becomes what the viewport width. From top to bottom becomes the viewport height. Then when I um, change the device size. So when you're on the inspect element, you can actually preview your web page on different device sizes. So how will my website look on an iPhone or a mobile device? This is how it's going to look. All right. So now this becomes what my viewport area. What you are seeing at the moment, that's the viewport area. So anytime we mention viewport, that is what we are referring to. Anybody else having any questions, anything we can sort out? If not, we're going to move on to the very next thing. All right, so let's continue, and then we are going to look at the very next thing I've planned, which is document validation, right? And I believe most of you have heard of W3C or the World Wide Web Consortium, and it's an organization that provides standards for rendering web pages, right? And so there is a lot more on W3C. I'm going to leave a link onto their website so that you get to see more of what they do and how they are, what impact they have on the website development industry. But they have standards which we need to follow in creating websites. And when you create a web page, you can actually validate, right? You can actually validate your website to make sure that it follows those standards, all right? So when I come here, what I can do is what I can copy my image, my code, and what's happening? Let me, let me use another browser in this instance and see. Come on, it's just not the time to update. All right, so validator 3C validator. Then when I come here, the- so what you can do is what, put in the link. If you have your website running on online, you can just put in the URL to your website over here, or you can copy and paste your code. You can copy and paste your code and then you validate. The third option will be to upload your file, and so we'll be using that option. So we just go to browse. Let me navigate to my project folder. And let's say I want to validate my index.html. So it's selected. Then let me check. Great. So it gives me the results, and then it shows the errors, things that are not right that I have to fix. And so it gives you the line where the error is, the column. Are you getting it? So it says what error? The link is missing one or more of the following attributes. That's what href. So let me go back into my project folder. Let me go to the index folder and back to the WP validator. It says what? That's on line 4, column 9. So let me go here, line 4. Great. So you realize that I've added a link element over here. There is no relationship. I haven't defined the real attributes or the relationship, and also haven't defined the ref. So it's giving me an error. So let me just take that out for now because it's not supposed to be there. It must have gotten there by mistake. Then let me see the same error. That's what's showing over here. Aside that, it says what? Trailing slash on avoid elements has no effect and interacts badly with unquoted attribute values. So we're on line 4. I think that's what we took out. So let me upload my document. Let me upload my index file again and check and see what errors do we have, right? So it says what? Great. So back here, I did mention that when it comes to the self-closing elements, this forward slash is not really needed. Your code is going to work fine if you don't have it. All right. And so previously in earlier versions of HTML, it was required to bring it. A newer version of HTML, which is HTML5, you don't have to bring it if the element is a self-closing element, like your image, like the meta. What else? I think like the B arrow or the line break, and then the H arrow, which is the horizontal rule. You don't actually need them, and if they are not there, your web page is going to work fine. This appeared because I tweaked my prettier earlier, and prettier will sometimes force you to use that, and so that's why these are showing. And so it's not going to affect your web page in any way. You realize it is what has no effect. It's not going to do anything, and if it's there and doing nothing, then you'd rather take it out. And this image too, I think I found it and I took it off. It was showing over here, so I found it and took it off. And then I think that was the same thing. It wasn't having any alt attributes. So let me just do another upload again and check. So now there is also another error over here. So bad value 500 pixels for attribute width on element image. I expected a digit but saw P instead. So that's happening on line 51. So let me come back to line 51 and serious, there's nothing on line 51. Sometimes it does happen. Let me validate again and see. Line 51, column 9. Wow, line 51. So width and P. Actually, I can't find a problem over here. But usually that's how it goes. you you keep validating and you keep correcting the errors. You keep validating and you keep correcting the errors until you are error free. You don't have to say you're going to correct everything. So far as your web page is rendered fine, you can go. But as much as possible, try to make sure you write valid HTML code. So I've commented that problem out, and as the Bible says, if a part of your body is causing you problem, just cut it off. It's causing problem, and I couldn't solve it, so I just took it out. You definitely want to look for solution for them. So basically, that's it. That's what we are going to be looking at on the validator. When you create a web page, you make sure you validate. So you are going to validate every single page, right? So if I go on to um, what we created today, what is the name? Resources. I'm going to validate that as well. And I think it's only showing me a one. It says what? I've defined my language to what? English. But the language it's finding within my document is what? It's a different language. And it's not a problem because, as you all know, we are just using a dummy text which appears to be, it looks like Latin. And so it's going to show that error. But when you are creating a real web page and you are using the right content, that error is not supposed to show. So basically, that is it about the document validator. Anybody having any question at the moment? Yeah. Yeah, Enoch, you can ask your question.
Mm. So please, I want to ask if the validator doesn't actually give the correct result, can't you host the website?
You can
Maybe you
always
have
you
you
can
have
host and run
yeah,
your website without validating. It's just a good
okay,
practice.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anybody else having any other question? Is Janet here today? That's bad. She asked the
I
question.
think you missed Saturday and today.
Yes, and I think there's something wrong. I have to follow up on that. That was just by the way. We're going to proceed anyway. And then there's one more thing I would like us to look at. As I said earlier, today we are not doing anything much. It's just us trying to have an interactive session, and then we look at a few tips. Most of what we are looking at today, usually when you're going through the basics of web development, most tutors get to skip them, and you find out those things as you move on, or as you learn and go on. So yeah, it's very good. As Adade is saying, it's good to validate your code to avoid errors. It's good to validate your code to avoid errors. And so, from the next assignments which I'll be giving, I'll be checking, I'll be validating the pages randomly to see which of them follows the standards. So, basically, that's it. And so, Janet asked a question, and while she's not here, I assume she's going to she'll be watching the video. And so let me answer that question because it doesn't only matter to her, it matters to everyone. And she asked that how does the DNS server, the domain, the IP, and the hosting work together to make sure that the website works. And basically what happens is, as we looked at in the introductory lesson, the DNS is like a translator. You feed it the domain name. The domain name is nothing to the web. It means nothing to the web. In You see, there is something which we call binary codes, and I don't know how to explain this if you don't already know it. But the normal text which you are seeing right now doesn't make sense to the computer. There's just a graphical display for us. The computer picks things in binary, which is 0101. So when you write "I am hungry," it's interpreted to the computer as 001 and in binary form. Are you getting it? And the same thing happens with our servers and stuff. When you say octaskills.com, it doesn't make sense to the server, right? And so the DNS server acts like what? A translator. You speak tree, The DNS server takes it and then translates it to what? To English. Now the server understands English. Basically, that's what happens. And so, just like the phone book functions, it translates your domain name to an IP address. Then that's now going to be sent to what? To the server. Your website will be located and then fetched to the browser and display for you. So the hosting, it keeps your files. The DNS server translates your domain to an IP. The domain name is how people get to access your website. The IP address is the uniform locator of your website. So that's it. That's all I have to say about the question. If anybody else is confused about anything, kindly ask a question, then we proceed. If you have a question, you can speak, please. Yeah, Shamil, you can ask your question.
Yeah. Concerning the question you just explained,
Yeah.
uh, you said the browser will change the domain name to a binary code.
I'm not saying the browser changes the domain name to a binary code. I was just using that to explain to you the fact that how do I get this through? Have you heard of this phenomenon that during the UN meeting, English is spoken, right? But then they
Yeah.
use live translators. So when a Chinese man is sitting, when let's say the president of America speaks English, the audio is sent into a live translator, and then the Chinese man hears it in Chinese. Have you ever heard of something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So basically, that's what happens. You write your normal text, but it's showed in binary. Are you getting it? And I can't
Okay.
explain how that works exactly right now. I may have to look through a few resources to be able to give you a solid explanation. But I think the phone book explanation was a solid one, right? When you have
Yeah.
a contact saved as Michael and you want to call Michael, you just go to your phone and you dial what Michael. But the phone is not dialing the text Michael, it's dialing the number associated with Michael. I hope you get it.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the job of the DNS server. The IP address becomes the phone number. The domain name is the name of Michael. Then the phone book is the DNS server. I think this should work fine. If you still have
Yeah.
questions, let me know. Great. So the binary code is zeros and ones. Folia that it says the computer understands zeros and ones. So zeros and ones, that's what we call the binary. I get it. So when you have THE, it's a chain. It's just a chain of zeros. It's just a chain of zeros and ones for the computer. Then I would like us to proceed and look at another thing. It's not really a thing to look at in HTML, but I've exhausted what I've planned for the day, and we have about an hour more to go. We may not exhaust all the 2 hours today. We don't always have to exhaust it. What I want us to look at is a thing called naming conventions, right? And we're going to be using, I'll be using HTML to give you those explanations real quick. But we have a resource over here, and then we have this particular image. Let's say the very last image over here. Let me clear everything. Let me clear everything and bring a paragraph. And let me first of all bring a div, then bring a paragraph text, right? Then let me bring an article, then bring another paragraph, then Lauren, right? Now I can add an attribute of a class to this first paragraph. Then I can say class is what? Paragraph one. Or let me say paragraph one. Then suppose I want to style this, right? Let me close all these tabs. Close and close, close. Seven resources. This. One thing you can do in Visual Studio Code is you can drag. So what I can do is let me drag my style, and then drag it here so it drops so I can work side by side. So over here I can just select my class, and then when I want to select a class, we use the dot notation. So dot, then the name of the class, which is paragraph one, right? Then I can apply my styling to it. Another thing here, before that, when I say P, I'm selecting the element itself. So when you want to select the element, you just type the element directly. Those are CSS selectors. We'll look at them specifically. But I have here, then I say font size is 2 rem, right? And then let me just bring this here like we were doing. Then I can have my web page. Let me have my web page show like this. Yeah, great. So font size 2 rem. Okay, it's not having any effect because I first of all have to link my HTML file to the style. So in here I can say link, press tab, and Visual Studio Code completes that for me. So let me just style.css, and you realize that my style which I have applied to the paragraph element has affected paragraph one. Let me bring a horizontal rule between them. So you realize that it has affected paragraph one and has affected paragraph two. Then, if I want to style only paragraph one, I can give it a class name of what? Paragraph one. So when I come into my style and I say paragraph one, I can say color. Then I can say Alice blue, and that's not showing well. Let me just make it red. Rebecca purple should be great. I don't know if you can see the color difference. Let me just make it red. We are not going for a design competition. Great. Okay. So now that I have given a class to that and I've selected that class, it's affecting anything that is going to have that class. I get it. Suppose I have what? An H1 element here. And so this is what? A heading. And I give it the same class and I say what? Paragraph one. When I save, you realize that, let me bring a few line breaks. You realize that the style is applied to it, right? Now, the primary focus, my focus over here is what? The name that we give to the class over here. I get it. There is something called naming conventions. And naming convention is basically how we name elements or variables or classes in programming, in this particular case, web development. And we'll be doing a lot more of them when it comes to JavaScript. I get it. And so we have a few of them which I'll be looking at, and then we uh, going to be looking at the very first one, which is called the camel case. Camel. So let me naming conventions. So we are going to look at the very first one, and we say what. So I'm using, and then one thing which I didn't mention to you guys is you can add comments in your code. And comments are just a piece, something you write that gives you information about what, about your code. So you can say maybe this is what you can say. Section one starts here, right? Then section two starts here. It's not going to show on the web page, but when you are going through your code, it helps you to document your code and know what your code is about. It does happen. You can write a piece of code and come back 2 months, 3 months later, and you don't understand what you yourself you have done. So comments play a very important role in that sense. Aside that, suppose you have an element, and let's say you are debugging, and it's giving you a problem, so you can actually comment it out. You realize that when I was validating my index file, I was having an error with an image element, which I couldn't solve. So I just had to comment it and see if there are other errors. All right. So you can add a comment, and there are different programming languages and different scripting languages have different ways of commenting. In HTML, this is how you go about it. You just type the less than sign, the question mark, sorry, the exclamation mark, two dashes in front, and then you just reverse the same thing. This time without exclamation mark in front, and everything that comes in the middle of that will what be commented, just as we have over here. To do it simple, just select whatever you want to comment. In Visual Studio Code, you hold Control key, you press the forward slash or the question mark key on your keyboard, and it's commented for you. You can press it again to uncomment. Basically, that's how you do the commenting. CSS has a different commenting way. JavaScript has a different way of commenting. So we'll be looking at that. So first of all, the naming conventions. I was saying we have the camel case. Yeah, David. Yeah, come on. We have the camel case, and as you can see, the camel case it starts with what? Let's say you have a list of words together. Let's say you have a variable called my name, right? My name, and you wouldn't want to bring the space because if you're using a language like CSS or JavaScript, it's going to treat them as different. Even if you are using a class and you separate them like this, paragraph one, these are two different classes. All right. So when I save, you realize that it's not up the red is not being applied to this because the system is treating it as a different class and a different class. So you want to bring them together. All right. So what I can do is what bring my name, write it as what paragraph one. Are you getting it? So this is what we call the camel case. The very first word is in small letters, and then any following words you capitalize them. So you can have what another paragraph here. All right. So that's basically how the camel case works, and we usually use this in JavaScript. We'll be looking at JavaScript when we are done with CSS. Then another. Let me just camel case. Then another naming convention we have is the snake case, right? Snake case. And basically that's how it is. So whatever it is that I have done over here, I have what paragraph one. That's how the snake case works. So you separate each word by the underscore. You separate each word by the underscore. Then we have another naming convention, which is more suitable for naming constants. This particular lesson should probably come when we are looking at JavaScript. But since I've started, let me just run through it real quick. Then we can go. So we also have the other one, which we use the hyphens, right? So we can say class names. That's also another naming convention. And I wanted us to look at this because I noticed somebody added an ID and brought a space. Since it's one word, you don't need to separate them. If it's one ID name you want to add or one class name you want to add, then you would have to bring in what do we call it? You would have to bring in the hyphen or the snake case. Is anybody else having any question? Yeah, Shamil.
Yes, sir. So I want to know the difference between a class and an ID.
Okay, so a class and an ID. I can't give you a word to word difference for them. But what we mostly do is class can be used for multiple elements. All right. So you can see that I have class is paragraph one, and then class is paragraph one over here. And I'm going to style and it will affect all of them. However, standard is that if you're using an ID, you should have only one ID on a page. All right. Suppose I give this an ID of what, P1. All right. I shouldn't give any other element the same ID. So when I come here, I'm gonna give this what, an ID of what, P2. I'm not supposed to do it P1. Are you getting it? And when I do it, you realize that VS Code has highlighted it. All right. It gives me the zigzag line, which indicates that there is an error in my code. When I hover over it, it says what, the ID value P1 must be unique, which means on this page P1 mustn't appear for an ID more than once. I getting, so we use ID for what, for unique elements. I getting it, and it mostly works. We mostly get to see the difference when we are doing stuff like JavaScript. When you are going to select an element on the web page, so if you have multiple of them, it's going to create an error. I, it's your question answered.
Yes, I will answer.
Okay. Anybody else having any question? Today's class is supposed to be very interactive. Questions, we answer them, we move on. Tomorrow we are beginning with CSS. We begin to style everything we are doing and make it look nice. So if you have any questions, kindly bring it on board. All right then. So basically that's it. That's all we have for today. Enoch, you have a question? You can come.
So please, I want to ask the naming convention, which one is appropriate to use?
Okay. So being appropriate to use, when we are dealing with classes and classes, usually go for the snake case. All right. When you are going for classes, you can go for the snake case. It works fine. ID, you can still use the snake case. It's gonna work fine, but mostly, yes, in IDs too, we usually go with the snake case, and it's gonna work fine. However, when we are working in JavaScript, and we are going to name variables, then we usually go with the camel case. We usually go with the camel case in JavaScript, and it works. The snake case still works in JavaScript, but more, I wouldn't say that's the standard, but that's the common practice.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah, so rounding up, that's all we have for today. And I would like to, Michael, you have, can you ask your question loud so we can answer it. Michael. Okay, so let me just read this question out. Michael says, please, when I try validating my HTML code, it said H3 is not allowed as a child element of UL. It's entirely wrong. Then I don't understand the last bit. So is one entirely wrong when he or she does it anyway? Okay, yes, it's wrong, and it does not even follow logic. When you have a list of items, say, let me come down here, then say, I have a UL giving me an LI with three elements. All right, so I'm basically listing cities, or let me say regions in Ghana. So I can say Greater Accra, then I can say Ashanti region, then I can say Eastern region. All right. So inside this list here, you don't need to put in a title. All right. So say you're going to put H3, and so what, regions in Ghana. Let's look at that. It shows perfectly fine. But you realize that the regions get shifted. Are you getting it? And that's not how it's supposed to be. So you bring the region on top. You bring what? The H outside the UL, right? And then this is how it shows now. Let me bring this here. So this is the right way to do it. So anytime you validate your code, so most of these errors you don't get to see them, right? You wouldn't know. So when you write your code, you validate it. It shows you the errors, then you know what you are doing wrong. Are you getting it? So that's the best way to go about it. Uh, I can see you guys are enjoying the lesson. The comments are coming in. That's great. Anybody else have any questions so far? Anything else to touch on? Yeah, Nanaji, man. Kindly speak.
Okay, so I think this my question is not really based on what we are learning today.
All right.
It's about the font size.
Yeah.
Uh, is there any default font size for a web page or
Yes.
depending on the
There
web
is a
page?
default font size for the paragraph element or text element. There is a default for heading element. There is a default font family. There is a default color for all those elements. And when we start with CSS, we'll look at those things a lot more. The default font family is Times New Roman. I have an extension. Let me remove. Okay, so I think I've removed the. No, let me remove. I've given a font size over here. So the default font size is 16 pixels, right? By default, the font size is 16 pixels or one rem. And I have a tool here, a Chrome extension here called Word Font. So when you're on a website and you see a nice font and you want to know the name of the font, you can just install that extension. You click on it. When you hover, it's going to show you the name of the font. All right. So you click on it, and then it gives you a lot more details about the font. So it says what Times New Roman. The font weight is 400. Uh, it gives you the font family, then it shows the font style. This is normal. It hasn't stated the line height. It gives you the font size, which is what 16 pixels, and it gives you the color. That's one element which you can use to detect the fonts on a web page. I have another element, another extension which I use, and it gives me not just the font but the entire styling of an element. And what's the name of that one? I think. Let me see if I let me try and get the name. The name. Yeah, it's called CSS Paper. CSS paper. So when I hover over this element, it shows me the size. And when we do the box model, we are going to be treating that in CSS. So you're going to understand what this is. And then it shows the font size, which is what 32, which means an H1 element is what 32 pixels by default or 2 rem. The text has been aligned. The text align is what the start. Then letter spacing normal, line height normal, font color is red, which is F00 or FF0000. We'll be looking at color codes. We wouldn't put focus on that, but a brief on it when we are doing CSS would be great. And then it gives you a background of what 0000, which is showing as black, but this is not black. This is the background is white, so there's probably an error over there. And then it says what an opacity of 0. And this is also giving me a wrong value because opacity is supposed to be 1. This is not opaque in any sense. But basically, that's how. Let me try this the extension on another page. Let me open the Okta website and try something. So when I come here and I select the element, if I select this element, it gives me the size. So I think it's a problem with the web page over here because when I come here, it shows you the text, the fill color. That is the text. Then it shows me the background based on what I have set in my CSS, the border radius. So when you select an element, any CSS that have been applied to that particular element is going to show it for you to see. So basically, that's it. another resource which you can add to your catalog as a web developer. Anybody else having any other question? All right, Corte, kindly ask your question.
Sir,
Yeah,
with my question, I realized that whenever I add a heading to the list,
yeah,
yeah, with the interface, I realized that the bulletin comes before this, and the bulletin comes, then the next line. That's when the heading also comes. It doesn't
really.
align. They don't find themselves on the same line.
Kindly share your screen so that we can see.
Um, yeah, please, I'll get back to you a little bit.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
off my laptop, so I'll
okay,
try.
okay. Michael. Michael is asking if I could run through the live server again. Okay, so the live server 5 server. What you can do is just come onto your inside your folder. You click on the extension that is the 4 cubes with one running away. Just click over there, and then just search for live server. All right. So when you search for live server, you're going to see the original one by what which weekday, and most of the time when you talk to web professionals, they will recommend that one, and it works fine. But I have tried that, and I have tried the other option. So when there is another option, it shows what live server into bracket 5 server, and that one is what by Yannick. And I did explain that it helps me when I'm navigating through my document. That is why I like the 5 server version. And I think he forked it from GitHub and then improved upon it. We'll be doing a little bit of GitHub along the line, and so you'll get to understand those things a lot better. And so one thing I like about the 5 server is you realize that let me open here this right there. So realize that I'm in my resource file and it's showing when I come to football, automatically the page opens to that for me. When I go to a different page, it opens to that. So when you're working on a project and you want to go to another page to preview something, you don't have to go and right click and open with 5 server again. Mostly that's what happens when you're using the live server itself. I don't know if that feature has been added now, but I tried it some time ago and it didn't work that way. So you just come here, click on it, and then you see what install. When you install it, you should see uh, an icon here which says well, go live. So when you click on go live, that's it. It's going to open your project in the browser. And if you're working on a CSS file and you click on go live, it's going to open the project in the browser. It's going to open the CSS file. So you just have to remove the CSS over there, the CSS file with the extension over there, and then you open your HTML file and you can begin working in it. I don't know if what do we call it? I don't know if I've answered your question, Michael. Enoch. All right, that's great. Enoch, can I ask your question?
So please, with the live 5 server,
Yeah.
does it have a shortcut for you to launch instead of clicking on the go live?
Go live. I think the go live is the simplest way to launch it. I think it has shortcuts which you can configure. I think I once looked at them some time ago, but I can't remember. And I think you can actually change them. So let me go to live server and see. It has shortcuts which you can configure. I think let me look at the settings.json. There are shortcuts. Let me even look here. Let me look
So
at
because
yeah.
I'm
Come
asking this because with live server you can use the Alt plus LO to launch.
Yes, this also
Yeah.
has shortcuts. I saw them some time ago, but I usually don't go with them because I can just click here and go with it. So let me just try and see if that will work. Alt plus O, right?
Alt plus LO.
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah, so it works. The alt plus LO works for it as well. So I think since this was forked from the live server itself, it should work. So the alt, I think so. Whatever shortcuts work for the live server itself should work for these as well. Yeah, Nana man.
Okay, so I'm very sorry. All my questions are not related to what we are just
Yeah,
saying.
it's fine.
I
Today's
just
section is doesn't have to really relate to what we are learning. Once in a while,
counted
we are
myself.
a moment. Once
Once,
sorry, once in a while, we are going to be having
once I was
interactive sessions like this. You get it, so that we ask random questions and go. It's part of teaching and learning. It doesn't always have to be according to the book. So today is one of those days.
okay, sir. Thank you for the chance. Whilst I was working on my assignment three,
Yeah.
I realized when I zoom out, like is zoom in or zoom out.
When you
When I
zoom in,
zoom
it
out the
becomes
page,
big
no. So this one is when I zoom out.
to make it small.
Yeah, it doesn't fit the browser. I don't know if I can share my screen for you to see what
Yeah, do
I
that.
really.
Do that. Do that.
Okay, so please a minute. I think I'm not allowed to share my screen, so I cannot do that.
Yeah, give me a
That
moment.
feature is
Let me see if I can fix that. Uh, host controls, share the screens. Okay, can you try that again and see?
okay, sir. Okay, it's now working.
Okay.
Please, can you see what I'm presenting?
I I don't know if anyone else can see, but I can't see your screen at the moment.
You can't.
No, Enoch is not
Oh,
seeing it. Harrison is not seeing it. Samuel is not seeing it. I think when you select,
okay.
when you click on share screen, you would have to select your screen again. You have to click on it again to share. I
Okay,
don't know if it's
okay,
because I'm
okay,
using
okay.
two screens, but just pay attention to it.
Okay, I'm just sharing the entire screen. I don't know if you can see now.
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about. This is the assignment three, right?
All right.
This is my assignment three,
Yeah.
and then so see when I zoom out, you see it doesn't fit. You could see that the image has been compressed to small size, and then the writing. So, is there any way you can? Uh, I mean, is there any way
Okay. So let me
you
show
can
you.
resolve this issue?
Let me.
When you
Yeah.
zoom out,
Yes. Let me show you something. Right click and go to inspect element.
please, I'm here.
Okay. So um, right click. You're supposed to show the device controls over there. I don't know
The
why.
device control.
Click on. Look at the extreme corner where inside the elements. Move your mouse pointer up a little bit. You have element console sources. Yeah. So click on the devices. No, the you see the laptop. Yeah. Click on that icon. No, not that.
This one.
Yes, the second one.
Okay.
Great. So now pull the handler, pull it back a little bit. Yeah, move it to the extreme. Move it to the very, yeah, very, move it there. Then
It's okay.
pull the other handler to resize the viewport. Yeah. So extend it full.
It's okay.
No, extend it to the very maximum. Great. Now zoom out again and see something.
It's not moving again.
It will go. It will go. Click on reset and try zooming out. You are zooming in this time. Click on reset. Just do that and click on reset. I think great. So zoom out again and see.
It's not going down again.
Scroll down, scroll to the bottom and let's see something. Okay, now where you have responsive device size, where you click on device dimension responsive, click over there. I want to show you something. At the very top, right under the address bar, you should see device responsive here. So click over there. Then click on any of the devices. Now, where you have the 375, modify it. Put your mouse pointer over there. Yeah,
The 375.
yeah. It's not clickable. If it's not editable, can you change it
Yes,
back to change it back to responsive? Sorry, then it should have been on responsive. Yeah, and then enter a value. Enter 4,000. So this is what's happening, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So when you zoom, what actually happens is that everything shrinks, and so relative to the viewport, it looks like your viewport size is now what increasing. Are you getting it? So
Okay.
your display is now more like a 4K display, like a very big monitor. And when you have a very big monitor and you open your website and you haven't even zoomed in, and you want to see everything fully, it means you have to go back. Then it will look very small for you. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
So it's kind of like simulating a 4K display. And we usually use this to try to test our website. When you are building, you want to see how it's going to look on different websites. I get it. So that's what is happening.
Mm.
So it's not a problem. Nobody will come onto a website and zoom out to be able to use it. So if the default view it's okay, that's fine. And when we are doing CSS, we'll be using these options a lot more. It's good that you asked the question. I believe your question is answered.
Yes, please.
Uh,
Okay, thank you, sir.
you're welcome. All right, so I think we'll just drop everything over here. Um, I appreciate you guys coming around, sticking around. Today's engagement has been wonderful, and I believe tomorrow's engagement is going to be far, far, far better. Shamil, I think this should be your last question.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I realized that when you were given the font size, you used RAM
Yeah,
instead of pixels.
yeah.
So what's the difference between a RAM and
Okay,
a
so
pixel?
pixel is an absolute value. RAM is a relative value, relative to the it's like the root element. All right. So when you look at when somebody zooms in, it's going to affect it. But the pixel is a lot more of a fixed value. So when somebody has to zoom in or use a magnifier to be able to see the pages, it's going to affect the display. We'll treat it more when we are doing CSS units. I did mention that in our lesson outline for CSS, we are going to cover the selectors, the units and sizes. So under units and sizes, we'll be talking about the RAM and then the pixel and then the EMs and stuff. We'll be looking at percentages, the viewport height and all those stuff.
So that means it's more recommended to use the RAM instead of the pixels.
It's recommended to go for the RAM rather than pixels. There are times where you would want to use pixels because you want it to be absolute. And when we get to start building projects, you're going to see. Aubrey asked a question about 10 minutes ago. It almost skipped me. He says, "Please, has the website homepage have does the website homepage have limited linked web pages or it's unlimited?" The homepage, you can add links, as many links on the homepage as you want. You just have to make sure that you are. Um, we have something we call user experience, right? So you want to make sure that when the user comes onto your website, they're having a good experience. When you have a lot of links clamped up, they wouldn't know what to click. So you arrange your links in order how you would want them to appear. Are you getting it? So that's it. I believe at this point we are going to bring the lesson to an end. Thank you very much, guys. As I have said earlier, um,